So I'm gonna review the movie Poverty Inc. And in the beginning, it catches my attention. It actually makes me laugh with it about how corrupt the how conniving and how scheming what a scheme the aid business, the big poverty business, and giving aid to third world countries. And it thoroughly explains very well how this system really is just for profit back in the U.S. for companies to get tons of money in charity contributions and government programs. They profit off of that, and then in turn also the food production companies profit as well in making and actually selling their excess food to these AIDS or NGOs programs to third world countries to give them free food, free shoes, free clothing, etc. And the movie does a good job in showing that it's like a scheme, for the U.S. companies and AIDS programs to make a profit, to make money off of this. And that part is all well and dandy. That's the part that hooks you to the movie. But then eventually the movie starts losing me big time. Once I start seeing that their salient point, their main argument is that you have to teach the poor how to be businessmen. And that becomes the central argument, is that you got to teach all these third world people how to become these entrepreneurs. And the movie starts going in a downward spiral after there for me, because it becomes not much any better than the aid programs that they're criticizing. So the big problem I have with the movie is that this movie's answer to end poverty is not only flawed and a lie in itself, but it's also it doesn't think outside the box at all, outside of capitalism. The film acts as if the world does not exist outside of capitalism, as if there isn't a way to do it outside of capitalism. So the ironic part is that there's a part in the movie where they show, I believe, the philosophy of social fact, that there's a certain idea where a thing originating in the institutions or culture of a society which affects the behavior or attitudes of an individual member of that society. So they say social fact, by the French sociologist Emile Durkheim, defined the term. And they talk about how these NGOs, these third world aid programs, these charities that give free stuff to third world countries have become a social fact, and we can't think outside of them. But also the movie itself doesn't think outside of the social fact of capitalism. It doesn't think outside. Maybe the system that screwed over these third world countries, also just giving them more of that system is not going to help them out of poverty. So it's like saying, the very thing that caused your poverty can also save you. So it's funny that they're not thinking outside of the social fact of capitalism at all. So there's a lot of problems here. The big problem I have is also that the movie is very conniving, in my opinion. It's very sneaky in the way it's actually a propagandist capitalist movie. So first of all, there's a lot of problems. You have everybody they interview are these rich entrepreneur types. And it's funny because the movie's always contradicting itself. At first, its main premise is that it's look at all these rich white people who are telling these people of color from third world countries that they're helpless, they can't do anything, and they're stupid, and they can't help themselves, so we have to help them. So, but in turn, we're supposed to just listen to these rich businessmen who are well off. And that's pretty much the bulk of who they interview are successful business people. And that's it. And that's really, this is a movie, a propaganda movie made by, it seems to only come from the idea of businessmen that are successful. Like, this movie is basically like, let's listen to a bunch of business entrepreneurs tell you how to get successful. And if that doesn't sound familiar, then you probably don't live in the US then, because that is pretty much the way pyramid schemes motivate people. So the movie comes off as this big pyramid scheme in that you're going to get the success story of a few and try to tell you that because these few people are successful, everybody's going to end up being more successful or will be successful. And that's how pyramid schemes work. If you ever been to any pyramid scheme presentation, they're always going to give you that story of that person, that one person, or that one family who are really rich or are successful or doing well. And this movie goes on a continuation of just showing you those little success stories here and there in very random spots, very seldom little success stories. And then they'll tell you, see, you can do it too. So it's very propagandist. Be aware of what a propaganda movie this is. And the way that in a way this movie is really just selling you the American dream. The way they sell local small businesses the American dream, who end up getting screwed over. It's the same thing. They're just selling it on a global level, on a third world level. And the movie continues to contradict itself. The irony is that they say, it's these rich white celebrities or these rich white people in power that are just telling these poor third world country people of color that they can't help themselves, that they need help, and that they're stupid. But in turn, the movie's doing the exact same thing, and they have multiple white people that are successful talking about talking about how to be successful to these third world people of color. And some of these people are like these very laughable, like these rich British dudes in mansions speaking with a posh British accent and telling you how you should become a successful entrepreneur like me. And it has a lot of that going on. It has some dude from, I don't know, from New Jersey or something who's living in a third world country, smoking a cigar and riding a motorcycle as if you're like, oh man, dude, I want to be like that guy. Total pyramid scheme tactics, and he's telling you, oh yes, he's enlightening us, enlightening everybody from the third world how, oh, you have to do this to be like me and be successful. It's a bunch of success people telling you how to be successful like them. And I'm sure you've come across, if you've been anywhere near YouTube, you've come across these type of tactics in multiple ads everywhere in YouTube. And so the movie comes on as disingenuous and extremely sneaky in its propaganda in this way. It's kind of just selling you this pyramid scheme. So anyway, so to go further in more detail, there's a part where there's also a white family who are into adopting orphan kids. And then this white family, in very ironically, there's a part where they're enlightening and telling the third world people that, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you're gonna help yourself. So it's very ironic that there's a whole scene where it's just this white lady telling these third world people of color what they're supposed to do, and even though the movie criticizes that in the first place, that's dramatic irony in my opinion. And then on top of that, they continue with the success stories. So it's funny that this white lady's teaching. The story is that she's teaching this lady who builds necklaces how to develop her own business. And the lady of the necklace develops her own business. She becomes more successful. And then in turn, she starts hiring people. As you know, how capitalism works is one person gets very successful and the other people get, I don't know, maybe a little more successful. Obviously not as much as that one person is. And it's in turn, it's building a little pyramid in itself. That's the way capitalism works. So I think it's funny that they try to build off this idea that because this one lady who got successful with her necklace business, that her one success story of getting out, of having a home, buying a home, all too familiar with pyramid scheme presentation, because she got successful, but it doesn't explain if all her employers are really all that much more successful. And that's the way capitalism seems to work, is they always go off of the one success story that you see, is that this one person made it, so maybe you can, but in reality, it doesn't work that way. It's always going to be the few get super successful, and then the rest end up being under them, just being average workers or whatever. And so, yeah, so at the end of the day, the argument they make is that, the very system, the corrupt system of money that puts you guys, that is the very corrupt system of money that is exploiting you guys, is the very one that will save you. And that is the message. And they don't go further and explain that even if you give them more of our system, they're going to end up exploiting people in their own system, and it's a never-ending cycle. So their actual idea of ending poverty is not really ending poverty. It's just making capitalism more prominent everywhere, and it's just spreading capitalism. The poverty is not going to be saved by a bunch of entrepreneurs everywhere. I'm sorry. It didn't end poverty in the U.S. Poverty keeps rising in the U.S. It keeps getting higher and higher. The inequality is getting bigger and bigger in the U.S. So sorry, but having these big entrepreneurs everywhere does not solve the poverty problem. So I find the film very disingenuous in that it tries to act as if they're really caring about ending poverty, but they're not. They're caring about is spreading capitalism further. And how I know this also is that the countries they pick, Ghana and Haiti, happen to be capitalist free market countries. So of course they choose the movie. Deliberately chooses to keep socialism in the dark, or communism or whatever, any other system in the dark, not even mentioning anything about those systems, and acts as if only capitalism exists in the world. And then you notice that in a way, this movie was designed to try to say that these capitalist countries can be saved. But the countries that aren't fully free market or do not practice free market or capitalism, who gives a crap about those countries? They cannot be saved. But we could save them because these countries are in the right path of free market and capitalism. But I think it's pretty evident that capitalism has not helped Haiti or Ghana. A lot of other African countries have not been helped by capitalism. Capitalism is exploitive in nature, and it thrives. If anything, this movie has shown me more is that capitalism thrives the most off of the poverty of the rest of the world. And this movie breaks, without it intending to, the unintended consequence is that the movie actually shows in the beginning that capitalism actually thrives on keeping countries like Haiti and Ghana and Peru poor. And that's because companies in the U.S. Stand to gain from poverty in the rest of the world, and very specifically capitalist countries around the rest of the world. So it's a global pyramid scheme. So thank you for showing me that, Poverty Inc.